Hello there. Welcome to Knowing Me, Knowing You with Dolly. I am Dolly Asindu. Today's edition of Knowing Me, Knowing You with Dolly is Stop Complaining, Save Your Marriage. Stop complaining, save your marriage. To start off today's show, I'd like to remind us that our goal or expectations here is a happily ever after, and that is a happy, fulfilling and lasting marriage. I'll also like to remind us of the key things that we have to keep in mind to ensure that we have this ideal marriage situation, and they are praying, loving, caring, trusting, respecting, sharing, sacrificing, compromising, communicating, great sex, having fun, and forgiving. Marriage experts have confirmed that it is practically impossible to achieve these things in marriage if we are constantly complaining. And when we keep complaining like that, it becomes a problem in our marriage. And that's why we have our topic for today as Stop Complaining, Save Your Marriage. Married couples will always complain or express themselves in terms of their likes or dislikes when it comes to marriage. There will always be something that you do not find going your way or the way you like it when it comes to your partner. Now, if these things are expressed in a positive way, then there's the problem. But when it comes to complaining, unfortunately, there is a thin dividing line between complaining and criticizing. Of course, when there are genuine reasons to express one's displeasure, so one's needs or wants in marriage, then definitely one should do that. But when it comes to a point where you start complaining or criticizing your spouse, if it continues unchecked, it can grow into something that can actually ruin your marriage. My late mother, a truly great soul, used to say to me, never let the 4 terrible horsemen come into your home. If you let them in, they'll turn your home upside down, inside out, and overturn everything you've taken so much trouble to build up. Do you know what the 4 terrible horsemen are? I'm going to explain it in a story. But imagine this. You have your little flat or your little 2-bedroom apartment or your home or a house, and your space is limited. Imagine a situation where 4 men on horseback come into your home. Just imagine the kind of damage or havoc that they're going to wreak in your home. Of course, all your plates and everything will be turning all over the place, your furniture, and things will be ruined in your home. That's exactly the image what my mother was trying to paint when she kept telling me about these 4 terrible horsemen. Listen to this story and see if you can identify the 4 terrible horsemen in this story. My mother shared this experience, and I was aware of it too. In the early years of my marriage, there was a couple who had been married for over 20 years. And they had this situation. The husband started complaining about one thing or the other that the wife was not doing properly. The soup was too watery, the soup was too salty, the eba was too strong, and it continued. Before he knew it, went into criticism. He was now criticizing every little thing she did. And then she started giving it back to him blow by blow. She also started criticizing everything he did. And then what happened? After a while, contempt came in. Contempt. Do you know what contempt means? It means having this feeling that something or someone is worthless, is beneath your consideration, beneath you. That is how this couple remained. They were so contemptuous about each other that they were not worth a kobo in each other's eyes. Each time the husband criticized the wife, she would get defensive and she would get very angry. He would also, when she criticizes him about one thing or the other, he would also get very defensive, and then he would get very angry. It continued for a while. Then at a point, they were not speaking to each other, because at this point, they had told each other so many terrible things that I really can't repeat here. And they felt so bad about each other. They lived separate lives, even though they were living under the same roof. Before you know it, it got to about 5 years, and this couple just lived like that, and malice came in. They were not speaking to each other. They had nothing to do with each other. The wife would tell the children, "See your daddy's food there," and she would take off. He would come back from work. He would not even ask, "What about your mom?" He goes straight into his bed, into the living room. Of course, he kept his things somewhere in the bedroom, but he slept in the sitting room. The wife slept in the bedroom. So there was no sex, no intimacy, no passion, nothing between this couple for about 5 years plus. Now, how did this thing end? That is a story for another day. So did you notice the 4 terrible horsemen in that story? The 4 terrible horsemen are criticism, contempt, defensiveness, and malice. Now, you might think that some of the things that cause problems, that lead to complaining or criticizing, or a situation where these 4 horsemen have to come into your home, may be really serious or big issues. That's not correct. You're wrong there. They start with little things. For example, a husband and wife. The husband likes the toothpaste being squeezed from the bottom up. Meanwhile, the wife goes into the bathroom and she just squeezes the toothpaste and takes it right from the middle. And he says, "You never ever squeeze this thing right. You keep squeezing it from the middle. Squeeze it from the bottom." The wife may, always say, "See, each time you use the bathroom, you never put the seat down." That could be a serious problem. And before you know it, they start criticizing each other about that, and it escalates. Another good example is this. The husband and wife are in the car together. The husband is driving, and a pretty lady walks across, and he glances at her, and then of course Madame flares up. Says something like, "Each time you're driving, you're always looking at girls. You're always looking at girls. Why do you do that? Am I not good enough for you?" Something like that. And then maybe they go out together, and some man glances, because men, they can't just shut their eyes, apparently. So he looks over and he sees a man looking at his wife, and he says, "Who is that man eyeing you? Do you have something with him? Has he chased you before?" And the classical one is where the husband comes back. He comes back from work, he eats, and he's sitting, he's just sitting down watching TV. Madame she goes to the kitchen, she carries the baby, she goes back here, she picks up dirty clothes, she puts in the washing machine, and then she says, "You're always doing this. You come, as soon as you come back from work, I just came back from work too. You're sitting there and you're not even helping me. You can't even help me feed the baby or do anything." And then, "Am I your slave?" And then, it just gets out of hand. So these seemingly little things are the things that lead to complaining, and then escalates to criticizing, and before you know it, the 4 terrible horsemen. Now, since couples will always have the need to express themselves when it comes to things like this, you just can't keep quiet. What do we do? How do we deal with these situations to ensure that we have a happy married life? I feel that to be able to rise above a situation where you're always complaining and getting into criticism, we should focus on gratitude. I really feel that gratitude is essential. Be grateful for all the wonderful things you have in your marriage, in your life. That way you'll focus less attention on those things that will make you start complaining. Because when you look at the things to be grateful about, there will be so many: good health, a home, something to eat, and all that. So you find that more of your attention is on gratitude rather than complaining. And then the next thing, rather than focusing on the small picture, focus on the bigger picture. A good example. Oga likes the toothpaste to be squeezed from the bottom, but Madame just squeezes it in the middle. So, what difference does that make? If Madame goes and squeezes it from the middle, who will it hurt? You go to the bathroom and squeeze it from the bottom the way you like it. No wahala. Everything is good. So you find that, nobody is going to die because Madame keeps squeezing the toothpaste from the middle rather than from the bottom the way you like it. So focus on the bigger picture rather than on the smaller picture. The next one, I like this one. Bring in humor. Laugh about it. And I'm going to share an experience here. My husband and I, when we were much younger, we would drive out together. And of course, like the example I shared, a young man, he would look at, one elegant lady, pretty lady. So initially when he did that, he would, just glance at some young, nice, pretty lady walking by. I would feel bad about it. There's a little bit of jealousy would come in. But then I would say, I'm going to say something about this. But I wasn't quite sure how to express it without it becoming an issue. So I would keep quiet. But then I would feel so upset and we'll go to wherever we're going, he would notice that something is wrong, he couldn't quite put his finger on it, and we'll come back home. It kept on like that, and then one day I decided to speak out. So we were in the car, and there was this elegant lady that just walked by, and of course he glanced at her again, and I noticed it, and I said, that lady's very good looking, very elegant lady. I saw you looking at her. And he said, which lady? I said, that fair lady that just walked by that, we just passed now that you looked at. He said, what fair lady are you talking about? I didn't see any fair lady. I said, really? You mean you didn't see this fair lady I saw you looking at clearly? And he said, D, I think you're imagining things. And he started laughing. And I laughed, and we laughed and laughed. Me imagining things. I said, all right, fine, sure. I am imagining things. So I made that my point, So each time he would turn and glance at somebody, I would just say, D, it's like I'm imagining things again. And we would both laugh about it. And laugh and laugh and laugh. So in the same vein, when we go out sometime and we're sitting somewhere, and men, they would not shut their eyes. Of course, so one man just glances at me, and when my husband notices that, he would, lean closer to me. And this day, he leaned closer to me and he put his hands on my shoulder, and then he whispered into my ear, you see like that guy over there, he can't keep his eyes off you. And I said, really? Are you sure you're not imagining things? And then he said, no, of course I'm not imagining things. I said, all right. So we laughed about it. And then he said, anyway, no problem. Looking is allowed. Just don't touch. This here woman is taken. And we would laugh and laugh and laugh. So that became our method of handling that. So I stopped getting upset, each time he glanced. I just felt it just didn't mean anything. Ben would look around, so it's just, part of who they are. So that's the kind of thing we're talking about. Bring in laughter, bring in humor, laugh about it so that, it doesn't weigh you down and it doesn't get into a situation where it gets out of control. Now, the last way of handling this is communicate better. Communicate better. Express yourself in a better, cultured, effective way. Talk, learn to listen, have a conversation, chat over it, and explain exactly how you feel and why you are upset about this thing he or she is doing or not doing the way you would prefer it to be done. Now, remember that in our last edition, we talked about putting attention on positive things rather than negative things. When you keep complaining constantly, it is negative. So we should focus on positive things. So complaining has its problems. So let's see. Now, when you complain constantly, the other person feels criticized. You stop listening to each other. You start criticizing, and the problem escalates, of course. You become unattractive. A complaining lady or a complaining man or husband or wife is unattractive to the other person, to your spouse, to your partner. You drift apart. Love fades. Passion dies. You stop talking and you become unhappy and your marriage breaks down. So stop complaining and save your marriage. So let's take today's quotable. Complaining does not make it better, it makes it worse. Laugh your way to a happier marriage. Stop complaining. So that brings us to the end of today's edition of Knowing Me, Knowing You with Dolly. And remember, our topic for today's edition is stop complaining, save your marriage. If anything you've heard today has made sense to you and you have something to take home, please don't forget to tell your friends, share this video with your friends and relatives, and subscribe to ensure that you be the first one to see all other beautiful editions we have coming to you. This is Dolly Asindu on Knowing Me, Knowing You with Dolly. Bye for now.